So how did you discover this gap in the market? Because there's obviously, and like you say, there is quite a clear gap, right? You say one person every 6 seconds is bitten by a snake, okay? And like you say, in the worlds where we are, probably in Denmark for yourself, and I'm obviously based in the UK, so in these areas, it's probably not that prevalent as it is, like you say, in the tropics. So how did Jonas Jørgensen from Denmark figure out that there's this gap in the market and that you should start a business in this area?
Yeah, it's a good question, and also one that me and my team are asked a lot, especially when we're traveling to these areas that are actually, where we're collaborating with people who see snake bites in their daily work, as opposed to
Brazil,
what
right?
we
You've
are
just come back from Brazil.
exactly as Brazil, for instance. Um, so during my studies, when I was supposed to pick my sort of the topic that I would do a bachelor thesis and later a master thesis on, I was focusing on topics that were more applied in that sense, where there was a clear problem definition and then science was being applied to solve that. And one of these projects that inevitably popped up in my study group was actually this Andreas Lausen Kiel, the postdoc from a technical University of Denmark, who had done a PhD on better antivenoms, so treatment for snakebite. And I thought that project sounded amazing. It started with the pitch: this many people are being bitten, this many people die or have permanent sequelae. What are the reasons that this is not better? Is due to the lack of quality antivenoms. We can do this better by implementing method A, B, and C. Okay, I was sold. So I went into his group and never looked back. And it was actually in this group that I met all my co-founders, who inevitably also thought that joining Venomaid back then was a good idea. And it was my colleague and the current chief scientific officer of Venomaid, Cecilie Knudsen, who initially pitched this idea of rapid tests for snakebite. So working with treatment of snakebite and making better antivenoms, we inevitably ended up questioning ourselves, and this was at least Cecilia's motivation back then. Well, now we're creating another choice for the doctors to choose between. So instead of just having two antivenoms, they're going to have a third. Obviously, it's going to be better, but when do they know, or how do they know when to use it? And this was when we started looking into, okay, if the antivenom, so the treatment, is lacking quality or lacking some of the modern approaches that we use in some of the more I would say westernly focused diseases such as cancer and diabetes or other metabolistic diseases, how is it then that snake bites are being diagnosed? And we ended up sort of being very baffled that it was done via the symptomatic approach. So, James, if you're bitten by a snake and you finally make your way to the hospital, you get there very quickly. You were lucky you had a scooter waiting for you. You might not show symptoms just yet. And if it's not one of the really expert doctors and you didn't see the snake or bring a picture of the snake, you might get asked to wait until basically the snake venom is working its way through your body and causing more symptoms. A lot of these symptoms are irreversible. So once they are there, you cannot undo what has happened. Some of these nasty pictures online where you see a half rotten limb due to a necrosis, so skin tissue basically dying, that's unsolvable basically. There you have to cut off the leg, right? But some of these symptoms, the doctors need to decide what treatment to administer. And when we sort of understood the complexity of the current diagnosis and the sort of the result of that on patient outcome, we just sat down and thought, there must be someone who has made a rapid test. And we started Googling around. Nothing existed except sort of a comparable type of test, at least conceptually, in Australia, where, despite popular opinion, a lot of people are dying from snakebite in Australia, but not really. So, a Western society had solved this, but anywhere where it was a real problem, where you had, very scarce infrastructure surrounding snakebite management, they were in need of such a tool. And that was when we then, back in 2017, decided to work on this just as an idea while we were still students. And then later in 2018, once we were lucky enough to have had won a few startup competitions and actually gotten some great feedback on sort of the concept, we started the company.